wheeling agreement, and the party still has an obligation to also meet its contractual obligation to the generator. And what Eskom does, it takes the payment that is made to the municipality, the payment that is made to the private generator in the context of a power purchase agreement, and Eskom is able to refund the off-taker, because what it means is that there's a double billing. It means that the off-taker has already paid the municipality what is due to the municipality, but the off-taker also is paid, has already paid the generator with whom he or she has got an agreement to provide a significant number of megawatts. So it means that the off-taker or the purchaser is paid twice, is double billed. So Eskom is able to refund. So in that way, we think that we are getting closer to energizing or giving life to the private sector, so that we are able to find new generation capacity. Now let me take the opportunity to take you through what has been the performance of the grid over the past week. As you'll remember that we use the period Monday to Friday for us to be able to give you an indication of how the grid has performed. I always make the point that we are one of the few departments whose performance can be easily measured, and how you measure it, an ordinary person, is the number of hours that your lights are on or off, and in that way you are able to determine if there's any improvement in the resolution of load shedding. And of course, by all accounts, all measures, you can see that we are beginning to register progress. I had made the point in our last briefing that we are turning the corner. And I did say that the Kusile units are sitting on the critical path, even when we have not received the benefit of the two units, Unit 1 and 2. From Kusile, we now have the benefit of Unit 3. Even outside those two units, we can see that we are turning the corner. And I did make the point that we'll be firing Unit 5 by end of the year, and we are going to see significant improvement. So what has been the story of the past week? The first one is that we did commit that we'll continue to ensure that we invest a lot of our efforts and resources on planned maintenance. Eskom did share with you their summer outlook, and they've indicated that at the peak of the planned maintenance, we should be sitting at about 7,000 megawatts. Now, the week that was, we are averaging about 5,381 megawatts. This is significant relative to what was the situation when we went through the winter period. We're sitting at about, we kept it around 2,500 megawatts. So we have doubled it, and of course, without any intensification of load shedding, of course, that is also supported by the fact that we are seeing a reduced demand. So we are using the opportunity of a reduced demand to ensure that we continue to intensify planned maintenance. I did make the point that this is a discipline that is going to inform the manner and the way in which we are going to conduct ourselves going into the future. Of course, there are legacy issues that undermine Eskom's ability to invest comprehensively on the maintenance side. But with the fiscal support received from National Treasury, that provides an avenue for Eskom to go that route. So the first part is we are continuing with planned maintenance. And the area that is also gradually beginning to show some improvement is on the unplanned capacity loss factor, so the rate at which these units are failing. And this really is a manifestation of the investment that the generation team has made in ensuring that we improve planned maintenance. There's a correlation between planned maintenance and the rate of failure of the units. So what the team is beginning to see is that when they return the units remain on load for longer periods of time, and they approximate their design capacity. So the efficiency is improving, their reliability is improving. So that's the benefit that we're getting. We did make the point early in August when we reached stage 6. We said that this really represents what we refer to as a short-term pain and long-term gain. And I really want to congratulate the team at Generation for the work that they are doing. So they're beginning to introduce and inculcate that discipline, and we're beginning to see the results of that discipline. So if you go back to the ESCOM summer outlook, you remember that they've indicated that their projection is that the unplanned capacity loss factor should be at about 14,500 megawatts. That's one of the scenarios that they've generated. So when we look at the week that was, we're sitting on average at about 14,100 megawatts. But what is significant is that there are considerable number of days where we are seeing a situation where we are below 14,000 megawatts, even before the return of the Kusile unit. So this is significant, I must say. Even today, we are sitting at around 13,000, below 14,000 megawatts. So we are surpassing those projections. And I want to say thank you, kudos to the team at Generation, doing exceptional amount of work. This is important to ensure that the system becomes reliable. We are able to lessen the intensity of load shedding and ultimately address the monster that is load shedding. And of course, we can see that what has been driving the issues around the losses is really on the partial load losses. And the team has indicated that they are doing everything possible to address the partial load losses. The partial load losses simply means that the units are generating their own loads, they are generating the megawatts, but these megawatts are not at their design capacity. Like I always use the metaphor of a car, it can reach speeds of up to 120 kilometers an hour, but the car is still on the road, but reaching speeds of about 60 kilometers an hour. And that's the work that the team is doing to ensure that we are able to address the partial load losses. We know who the candidates are. From a station point of view, Kendall will rank amongst those power stations, and really has to do with our emissions parameters. We have brought in outside expertise to help us to ensure that as we run these units to their design capacity, we are not caught wanting on the issues of the emissions level. And then we are also making improvements on the outage slips. Outage slips means we make a promise to say that we'll take the unit out for service for this period of time, we'll return it on day X. And if we commit and we do deliver it on day X, it means that there are no outage slips. We are living up to our promise. And if you don't return it at that time as you have made the commitment, that results in what we call outage slips. So therefore, we are not able to give the promise of maintaining or lowering the stages of load shedding because we had anticipated for the unit to come back, and the unit has not come back as promised, and that's why it's an area of attention. So when you put all of these things together, the rate of failure of these units, when you take into account the issues of the partial load losses, when you take into account the issues of the outage slips, those have got an implication on the capacity available. So what do we want to achieve? We want to reduce the unplanned capacity loss factor. I just said that we are making significant improvement thanks to the investment we are making on the generation side. I do make the point that the partial load losses requires attention. It's something that the team is exerting itself, and we are confident that we should be able to get that right. And then I did make the point that we are addressing the issues of outage slips, and then we can see a gradual improvement. The last week we were sitting at 1,148. I've made the point previously that for us to have a better appreciation of the improvements that we are making, we must measure it not in weekly intervals, but over an extended period of time. So we have chosen to use the month of May as our baseline. So if you like, our reference point. And then if you look on the issues around the planned outages, planned outages, when we started in May, it was 3,120. So planned outages, it means out of our own volition, having examined the risk inherent in one unit or the other, we decide that we are going to take this unit at this time. We'd have planned for it, because that's what planning means, that replacement equipment is there, the skills are there, and of course the workshop are ready. The workshop is ready to receive these units for repair. So when we entered the period of May, that number was sitting at 3,120. So it means that we took out 3,120 megawatts of these units to go and fix them. I did make the point that when we went into winter, we reduced that as part of our winter strategy so that we have more megawatts onto the grid. So now as I speak to you, that planned maintenance is sitting at 5,381. So there's been a 2,000 megawatts increase in the planned maintenance relative to May. Why is that the case? That is the case because I make the point that the discipline of planned maintenance, philosophy maintenance, is something that we are going to subscribe to, is one that we are going to maintain, but it's also made possible by the fact that the demand is coming down. So we're using the opportunity of demand coming down to be able to accelerate planned maintenance, and we're going to see the rewards later over an extended period of time. And in fact, we're beginning to see those benefits now. So it's an improvement. The fact that you are taking out an additional 2,000 megawatts without the degradation of the intensity of load shedding, I think is something that is to be welcome. On the unplanned capacity loss factor and the partial load losses put together, when we entered the May period, we averaged about 17,369 megawatts. So it means that over that period, on average, we had 17,300 megawatts that was out as a result of the units being unreliable, the units not performing at the right efficiencies, and that has got implications on the intensity of load shedding, because now the tool you have to be able to balance the delta or the difference between demand and generation is load shedding. Where are we now? And this is a single biggest indicator of the kind of progress that we're making. As I speak to you now, we average about 14,100 megawatts. That's significant, because what that means is that notwithstanding the fact that we have taken out, if you like, an additional 2,000 megawatts, but we are able to ensure that on planned maintenance, but we have reduced the unplanned capacity loss factor by about 3,000 megawatts. So the net is that the grid is healthier by about 5,000 megawatts. So that's important. That's a significant measure of the progress that we're making. And of course, we're able to realize those benefits in relation to the number of hours that the lights are on. And then, like I said, the area where we are not seeing any major improvement is on the partial load losses, and I've made the point that the team is hard at it to ensure that we are able to reduce those partial load losses, and in fact we only 200 megawatts or so better from what was the case in May. So it's important that we are able to improve that result. And of course, I do make the point that this is made possible by the fact that there's reduced demand. So 31,000 megawatts averaged during May, and now it's about 27,000 megawatts. So if you like, a difference of about 4,000 megawatts. That's significant, and that's what gives us an opportunity to ensure that with reduced demand, we're able to make significant investments on the maintenance side, and then you'll see that when we enter periods of difficulty, and difficulty in this instance means when demand is going to spike when we go to the next winter, we are ready for that winter, and we shouldn't be seeing the intensity of load shedding that we have been experiencing. And then the area of outage slips is something that, like I said, is receiving our attention. We have improved from an average of 3,400 megawatts. We are sitting at 1,100 megawatts. But during the period of July, June, we are averaging about 766 megawatts. So that was the peak of our performance in relation to outage slips, and it's something that is going to receive our attention. And I must say, as I close, that to repeat the point I made earlier on, we are not out of the woods, but we have turned the corner. Not out of the woods because we are experiencing load shedding. Even if it's of lesser intensity. We have been, the appointment here of the Ministry of Electricity is to ensure first to reduce the intensity of load shedding, its frequency, but ultimately to address load shedding so that it's not a feature of the South African energy supply or generation ecosystem rather. So we are seeing that the lessening of the intensification, and of course the generation team is still committed to ensuring that we are retaining those 2 units. We're retaining unit number 2, number 3 of Kusile in the month of October this month and beginning of next month. And then when we go into December, we should be able to start firing unit number 5. So potentially, if you come to think of it, between from October to December, we can get a maximum of 2,400 megawatts. It's those 3 units, unit 2, 3, unit 1 and 2, I'm sorry, and also unit number 5, which will be firing for the first time. And that's the point I was referring to, that we are not out of the woods, but we are turning the corner. You can see there are green shoots. The fact that you can go for a day, whether it's a weekend or it's a weekday, without load shedding, it's psychological. It's a major victory. We had not done that over a period of time. Notwithstanding the fact that the demand has gone down, but I've just illustrated that the available capacities is sustaining at those levels close to about 60% of the EAF, and then we'll be retaining these units, and there's going to be significant improvements in relation to the energy situation. Like I said, new generation capacity will be key, and that's why we are accelerating those efforts, including the potential of the import from neighboring countries. So thank you very much, Taki. I thought I must give that update.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, for the update. We would now like to open the floor and the media WhatsApp group for a question and answer session. We'll start with media that is present in the room, followed by questions that are on the GCIS media updates WhatsApp group. By show of hands, do we have any questions? You can use the table microphone.
Hi, Jokas from the NCA. I just wanted, Minister, if you could just please elaborate a little bit more on how you're going to tackle the issue around municipalities, because this is clearly a problem that's persisting, and I mean, it's a huge problem, which really cripples ESCOM's revenue collection. So how better are you going to handle the situation, especially because it's not a new problem and it's been there for a while? This question might have been answered some time ago, but I'm just going to ask it again. The city of Tshwane has indicated that it wants to refire the Booyabal power station, and they are calling on private sector to come in and possibly fund that project. They obviously have to do a number of assessments first to see if that power station can actually be recommissioned. From your understanding, Minister, do you know why it was decommissioned and if it can be of use to the city of Tshwane? Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Do we have any more questions in the room? If not, Takalani, can we take questions on the WhatsApp group?
Thank you, Zagan. We have, I think, 3 questions from Helmo Cruz from Independent Media. One is why were power imports in August lower than in July? And the second question, will there be a national wheeling tariff? And the third question, what caused the spike in the other outage factor to 3.43% in week 39 from 1.01% in week 38? And we have Deneen Erasmus from Business Day, and the information from ESCOM shows that the amount of installed rooftop solar doubled to about 5,000 megawatts over the 12 months to end July 2023. Does ESCOM have an estimate or expectation for how much installed rooftop solar will increase between August and the end of current financial year to end March 2024? And can ESCOM provide an estimate for the impact this will have on revenue from electricity sales for the current financial year? And we have 3 questions from Terence Kramer from Engineering News. The first one, when will the updated generation connection capacity assessment be released? And will the document be released prior to the launch of the next public procurement programs? And when do you expect the next renewable speed window to be released? And how has Kgosientsho Unit 3 been performing? And are there other 2 units still on track for resumption as communicated? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lanu.
I want you to, you'll go first, answer the ones you can answer.
Yeah.
You can go first and answer the ones
Mr.
you can.
Eric Shunmakam will go first, followed by the Minister. Thank you.
I think regarding the imports, unfortunately, those are specifics. I'll have to get that information from the system operator, from the transmission business. So my apologies, I'm not in a position to actually respond. Was that the reason? Okay, I've just confirmed with my colleague there was actually a drop in load from the Kora Bassa feed. The other question, the Minister, was that I was just jotting down sort of the generation questions. I think the Minister will probably help with the issue around the IRP and the bid window. Just in terms of the Unit 3 performance, I can confirm that in terms of its sent out, it's now sending out 720 megawatts. And I think as highlighted by the Minister, what we are seeing is very stable performance from this unit. So in terms of its capacity, in terms of its design, 800, but you're aware that we use some of the megawatts generated for the plant, and in terms of what we are contracted to send out, it's 720. So this morning I can happily respond that Unit 3 is generating 720 megawatts. In terms of the other 2 units, I can confirm that we are on track. There's 2 parts to the program. Number 1 is ensuring that we have these temporary stacks built in time. We are definitely on track. Unit 1 is now ready in terms of the construction program. The team's busy with the actual commissioning. And as promised, we should have that unit coming on track at the end of October. And then Unit 2 is planned for November. And as highlighted by the Minister, Unit 5, which actually had a fire issue, is planned to come in the 4th week of December. That will be the first synchronization. So potentially you're going to get 4 units supporting the grid. This also, I think, bodes well for generation, because from around 15th of December, we use that opportunity with, the factories generally closing. We use that opportunity to step up the planned maintenance. And in terms of the generation maintenance plan, this is when we try to recover between, the 15th of December and the 2nd week of January. This is when we get to do an extra 1,500 to 2,000 megawatts in planned maintenance. Okay. Thanks, Minister.
Thank you very much. Maybe just to make Heidi, you are absolutely correct. I think the issues of municipalities are going to become an area of focus. If you like, is an albatross. The issues around the payment levels, the issues of illegal connections, placing significant amount of strain on the distribution infrastructure, because in many instances it exceeds, if you like, the maximum capacity of that distribution infrastructure. Of course, sitting here as a minister, I really don't have the powers to address that. So, of course, it's a function of the intervention made by individual municipalities, and as part of the intervention that the National Treasury is proposing for purposes of writing off the debt to ESCOM, part of the requirements is that first, municipalities need to address the issues of illegal connections, and then secondly is to ensure that the municipalities or households rather commit themselves to allowing that we have a prepaid meter system, a dispensation of a prepaid meter system, and then thirdly is that they have to be diligent payers over a period measures consecutively over 12 months, and if that happens, then they are into consideration for a write-off in relation to their debt. Of course, we have not resolved the bigger problem. That bigger problem is that still with that interventions, municipalities will require a substantive amount of money to invest on the refurbishment, replenishment, and maintenance of the distribution infrastructure. As you know, is that a lot of them are finding it very difficult. Their revenue collection is significantly being eroded as a result of bigger questions in the economy, and load shedding, of course, is a major contributor to the performance of the economy, a structural constraint, and that has got a significant impact on the ability of municipalities to reinvest the money into maintaining this infrastructure. So what we are looking for is to find a solution, an instrument that will make it possible that as we have conversations around how you address the debt questions, in the short term you need to fix that infrastructure. Someone has to come into the picture. And of course there are provinces like Gauteng, for an example. The provincial government is on record to say will come into that space and help to address the infrastructure requirement, the capital requirements. Of course, there are accounting issues, who owns the asset, who gets to account for the asset. That's a technical accounting issue that needs to be resolved. But I think the bigger issue is that the municipalities on their own, they are unlikely going to address this situation. So it's important that we are able to come into the party, the 3 spheres of government, and ESCOM, of course, and as a major player in that space to ensure that we resolve this. Of course, there are constitutional issues. A more legalistic approach is that the Constitution says the reticulation of electricity is an exclusive domain of municipalities. But like I said, ESCOM has entered that space as a result of challenges that municipalities are facing, and ESCOM is discharging that responsibility. So what's the long and short of it? It's a complex problem that requires answering, but you can't have a situation where communities and industry goes for days to no end without electricity, when in fact some of them can show that they've been diligent payers. And we have been able to confirm that in many communities. You go to Komati, it's the same thing. You go to parts of Soweto, Deep Kloof, you go to Orange Farm, many parts of the country that I visited. Diligent payers, of course, they are victims of municipalities that are unable to replace the failing infrastructure. And I did say that in part some of it has to do with these illegal connections. So we have to address conditions of illegality. We can't continue to postpone it. The state must exert itself. The state must come into that space and ensure that you remove all this illegal connection, and of course protect the poor. I think it's important that in that dispensation you are not hammering the poor, you are going to protect the poor, and then we've got a grant dispensation that makes that possible. So that's not an issue. It's about those that are connecting illegally, placing an onerous burden on municipalities and putting lives at risk. And then, Heidi, we welcome any initiative, it is myself, on additional generating capacity. So the city of Tshwane is sitting those assets, Rooival and Pretoria West power stations. Of course, decommissioned some many years ago. That was a function of the fact that we had excess generating capacity, electricity relatively cheaper as these units were aging, and the municipality made that determination. But in the context of an energy deficit that we are having and the assets that are lying idle, of course, the municipality has made a determination that they want to go that route. And of course, they are looking at innovations of how you can engage private sector players. I'm sure they can speak with authority there. Just the general principles where we are is that, and also that's how I understand it, the municipality is looking at a lease arrangement. So essentially finding a private sector player, investing their own money, resuscitate the plants, and then get the megawatts onto the grid over a period, a contracted period that they would have agreed to. The asset reverts back to the municipality. It does two things, that intervention. As I understand it, the first one is that additional generating capacity, and then the second one is that the state still remain the custodian of the asset because it will revert back to them much later. And then on the issues around the national wheeling tariff, so part of that framework, Helmut, that is being considered by NERSA is to resolve exactly that. So we'll wait for that outcome from NERSA. For the framework advocates for that, so that there's consistency in how we are applying the wheeling tariff, so that you are able to eliminate a situation where there could be a municipality that builds into the wheeling tariff foregone revenue. So by that I mean, as a result of a good payer deciding to purchase electricity from somewhere, then the municipality penalizes that player to say, I was meant to receive so much money from you. So in the computation of the wheeling tariff, they build into that foregone revenue to compensate for exactly that, for revenue that now they are not receiving. So it's important that you are able to introduce that discipline going forward. Yes, the next bid window, Terence, I know it's an issue that we have been raising consistently. The last when we engage with the DMRE is that they should get it by end of this month. Of course, we had expected that they should have gone out by end of July already. So you can see we're way out of those timelines. And I think the agency is important, just an appreciation of the scale of the problem that is confronting the country. I think the speed with which we go out to the market and we are able to get to preferred bidder status and allow the developers to close get to financial close, go into construction, get the megawatts onto the grid is important. It's going to be key in helping us to resolve the problems going forward. And then on the issues around the rooftop solar, first is that I think the question was, do we know, have projections on whether the implications of the rollout, the aggressive rollout of rooftop solar on the revenue, what that implication is. I'm sure ESCOM, if they have an answer, they'll provide that. I just want to raise a bigger issue. And that bigger issue is in the context of the outcomes of the Energy Action Plan. Outcome number 4 really is meant to encourage the rollout of rooftop solar solutions. And that's why the Minister of Finance has introduced the incentives for people to roll out rooftop solar. Of course, that only goes for the panels. We are looking to introduce an instrument I did mention some time back. We are working with some of the pension funds to make it possible for other people to also get into the space. Because remember, the incentive by the Minister of Finance presupposes that the households and industry are sitting on unencumbered cash, they are liquid enough, or they've got the right credit profile to raise money from the bank and make the upfront capital costs, roll out the PV, and then get the rebates later. But we know that there are many households that don't have the luxury, are not sitting on 70,000 or so of unencumbered cash. So we really want to work out that instrument so that you are able to democratize. Of course, there's a downside. The downside to that is that there's going to, the revenue streams going to municipalities are going to come down, going to ESCOM is going to reduce because people are self-generating. And the first people to go that route is likely going to be your good payers, because your good payers really are people and industries relatively well off, and they're sitting on this liquidity. They are the first ones to go onto this dispensation and undermine the ability of municipalities to collect. And that's why in the DORA, if you like, dispensation, the division of revenue, what gets to municipalities. Remember, that is based on the assumption that municipalities average, especially our metros, are able to raise about 90% of their income, and only 10% comes from the National Revenue Fund. So you need to rethink creatively on how you are going to address that, because now municipalities, as you know them today, are unlikely going to perform their constitutional function because their revenue streams are getting to be truncated. So it's just a complex set of matrix that requires answering, although on the one side the benefit is that first you are greener, municipality, households and industries are able to self-generate. If you are going to go into a dispensation of the feed-in tariff, which we are considering, they are likely going to get an additional income. They make upfront capital investment. They generate excess capacity over a period of time as a result of the feed-in tariff. Feed-in means that excess generation, that which I'm not using, I feed it back into the grid for a fee. It means that they've got annuity. Then the return on investment on the capital cost investment is shorter, and over a period of time they are making money. There's a downside to every intervention we are making. So the key is to balance that, because the last thing you want is that in the resolution of one problem, you are creating a bigger problem, which is essentially the liquidation of municipalities, and essentially municipalities not having the ability to address and meet their constitutional obligations. So it's that delicate balancing act, and I must say and give you the assurance that working with COGTA, SALGA, all the players to ensure that we were able to provide that solution. Thanks. And I've answered them.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Minister and Mr. Shoni Magan. We will now take the last round of questions. I would also like to introduce Mr. Bruce Moyo from ESCOM's...
Prince.
Oh, sorry, Prince Moyo from
Yes.
ESCOM's...
Another Bruce.
We'll dispatch him to Tutuka.
Do we
Let's
have
go to Tutuka.
any more questions in the room? Takalani, do you have questions on the WhatsApp group?
Yes, we do have Tsakani. We have Chris Yelan from WE.
Oh, yes.
And the question from Chris is the current demand indicated by the minister is about 27,000 megawatts, which is very low. Is this 27,000 megawatts the total demand from all customers in South Africa? Or is this the residual demand that is met by ESCOM, which is excluding the demand met by IDPs, customers of electricity through own generation? And Miriam Isa, also from WE Business Intelligence, please can the minister indicate the percentage of the total money received by municipalities from National Treasury for free basic electricity to indigent households in South Africa in the last financial year that was actually dispersed to indigent households for free basic electricity in South Africa in the last financial year? And we have seen from Business Report with the return of 3 additional units at Kgosientsho before the end of the year, can the minister confirm whether we are likely to not experience stage 6 anymore this year? And we have Carol Patton from News 24. The question is, government has been talking about changing the culture of non-payment for 20 years. Most recently, NICOM said it would do this a year ago. Has anything been done? Back to you, Zakan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Takalani.
I want to take the demand issue.
Oh.
Three.
We'll hand over to Mr. Prince Moyo. Thanks.
Just yeah, he needs to come closer.
All right, let me project. Can you hear me?
No, this one.
Yeah.
All right.
No, it's fine.
Thank you. I'll attempt to answer the question from Chris Yelland on demand, the 27 gigawatts. I think the table does illustrate that it's a peak forecasted. So this is a peak demand, and this is what the system sees. And if there is self-generation behind, I think that would obviously mean that the actual demand is higher. But I think with what we know, and that being peak, it is not very likely that there is a lot of self-generation, because that is peak. And a lot of the alternative options right now are not very much available during peak. So that is generally what the country demand is for all intents and purposes. So that's what we would say, Chris, on that one.
Okay. You have something?
Thank you, Mr. Moyo.
Do you have anything to add? Please, yeah.
I'll take the question in terms of the stages. I think you know, we do acknowledge that as much as we are getting much more stability, for example, at stations at Duva and Tutuka. I mean, just to report at Tutuka, we now have 4 units running. And just as an example, we had a challenge over the weekend. We were able to take the unit out and you know, bring back the unit. So Tutuka is producing 4 units. In terms of the scenarios that we've projected in the summer outlook, this is done independently by transmission, and I think you're aware that we've done 3 scenarios. Generation's objective is to reduce UCLF to below 14,500, and in that scenario, we would look at you know, containing it to not more than stage 4. I think against the backdrop of the unreliability, as we sort these units doing proper philosophy maintenance over the coming months, we should see that stabilize. So I think generation's objectives is to contain the load shedding to not more than stage 4. And just to sort of give you an indication of the landscape for the coming week, it would be stage 0 for during the day, and post 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we will do stage 2. Once again, the objective there is to build up some of our water reserves. That would be my feedback.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Just to make the point that as our colleagues from Generation has indicated, I think the most enduring resolution to this problem, as indicated, is to make sure that the units, when they return, they remain on load and they approximate their design capacity. So address the reliability, address the efficiency. And I think Tutuka is an excellent example of what the team has achieved. I mean, for a very long period, they were only operating on 1 unit, and now they are consistently operating on 4 units. It's as a result of what the team has done, the support that we received from National Treasury, the 254 billion rand of fiscal relief. The team is able to place that to use on some of these power stations that had been notorious for underperformance. The fact that the Generation team had taken some of our most experienced engineers to run some of these power stations. Mr. Bruce Moyo, one of those at Tutuka, as an example. No, this is Prince. Bruce is the one at Tutuka. I will not take you there. Yeah. Bruce is at Tutuka. They are doing exceptional work, of course, supported by the colleagues at Megawatt. So you need to resolve the issues around the reliability and performance of these units. And that's why making the point that during the period in December when factories are closed, of course, the demand will come down significantly. They are going to ramp up plant maintenance. You need to fix these units. And if you look at the recent past record of what the team has been able to achieve, is exceptional. I know that they will not blow their own trumpet, but the team has done exceptionally well. I register that with them all the time. Being typical engineers, very modest about their achievement. They want to do more, very selfish in relation to performance, and we encourage them to be selfish in this instance. And selfish means to perform better and better going forward. And in this way, you are going to even wipe out, remove that scenario that they projected. As is indicated, that scenario of keeping it below stage 4 is based on the assumption that your UCLF is at about 14,500, but the team is doing better than that even now. And when the units come back, they are likely going to improve. So we should be seeing the improvement going forward. On the issues of Miriam, what has been the total allocation to municipalities on the threshold of basic services? Remember, it's a combination of water and electricity. No, I don't have that number from the top of my head. I can go and get it. But the point I'm trying to make, the point that I want to make in this, in the light of this question, some of the things we are proposing, remember on that instrument in relation to ensuring that the poor also have an opportunity to roll out rooftop solar, you can redesign this allocation and direct this allocation to the purchase and installation of rooftop solar. Because this is an ongoing cost, because people are consuming monthly. But if you are to redirect that, redesign it, make sure that you use that allocation to procure and install, you are going to find that over a period of time, there's a relief to the fiscus because people are self-generating, at least for a considerable period of time during the day. And therefore, you can direct that money to other parts of the South African economy. But let me take the opportunity to thank everyone that has made time to join us this morning. We really don't take it for granted. I want to say to the South African people that we're doing everything possible, and thanks to the men and women, competent, patriotic, and committed men and women at the ESCOM to ensure that we resolve this problem. And of course, there are matters that are in our hands. I mean, the issues on the demand side, the issues on illegal connections. I think it's us, communities, that must exercise our agency, bring to the attention of law enforcement agencies, attention of municipalities on acts of illegality. They've got a human cost and they also have an economic cost, and there's great inconvenience that is felt by many households. So it's important that we focus on that. And I want to give assurance that in all the measures that we are taking, the poor will be taken care of. We have a full appreciation of the difficulty they are going through. And of course, like I said, the system is designed to ensure that these free basic services get to be extended to the poor, so they will not be penalized in any way. The democratic state is fully appreciative of the needs of the poor, and that's why that agenda won't be undermined. So I really want to take the opportunity to thank you. One of the things that we are doing is we could be going into a stage where we're going to have these briefings maybe every fortnight as opposed to every week, but the communication team will make that known to you so that we also get to, because we chose the weekly cadence because my view is that during times of extreme difficulty we can't be absent. We have to tell you what's happening with regards to the system. And of course, when we see relief, we are not out of the woods, we're turning the corner, but it's important that, in fact, even with that in mind, we have to give you an update. But we will let you know on the cadence, but the updates will continue. Very important that we get to account, we are transparent, and the colleagues both in the room and online, they've always been robust. The kind of questions that they are asking, first, critical of the work that we are doing, but also most importantly, trying to help us to answer these questions and help to resolve the issue of electricity challenge in the country. And I really want to say thank you very much for the colleagues who are diligently attending, because that empowers an ordinary person who might not have the necessary tools to ask the kind of questions that you are asking, but it gives us an opportunity as we respond to clarify what the issues are, and for that we are eternally grateful. So thank you very much. We wish you the best of the week ahead. Thanks, Tana.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to the Minister of Electricity, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, and the representatives from ESCOM for the updates, the responses, and the further clarity. This brings us to the end of this week's media briefing. As the Minister indicated, communications with regards to the frequency of the media briefings going forward will be relayed to all media. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Oh no, really, thanks for you're doing great work.
So, because we had a custodian.
Yes, I know.
Yes.
But how can they administer
They
don't apply to us. We don't get
Just to
that.
give you context, right? The system operator saw a 2,000 uptake in solar PV. That thing project. So we were sitting at one stage at 4,300. Which means during the day, because we are showing peak. On a good day,
Yeah.
We are going to support and up to 40. Thank you. Sure. So this is now residential solar PV. This is excluding industrial PV. And residential rooftop is only taking.
But may not